am here to talk about self-care, which I find deeply ironic because I struggle with self-care about as much as you could possibly imagine. However, I'm going from using my musical background to figure out what's wrong as I'm playing to figure out what's wrong in my self-care, which works for me, kind of. Okay, so first and foremost, just so you know, I am not an expert on anything. Let's just get that off, right off the bat. I can't give you advice about your kids, your marriage, your mental health, your funky skin condition, or if that lunch meat in your fridge has gone bad. Basically, I'm not an expert on anything. There are a lot of experts here at SENG this weekend. Corral them in the bar, corral them in the bathroom, pick their brains, they're the experts. I'm just up here as a parent who has figured out what doesn't work and what does work, and to help you figure out what you need for you as well. So take everything I say with a grain of salt, maybe your own personal salt lick, you've been warned. So about me. If you can't tell from the photo, I'm a little bit quirky. I have many roles in my life. I am the mom of two twice exceptional sons. The oldest is 16. He's been homeschooled for the last 5 years. And it looks like we're going to be homeschooling through high school. He's a junior this year. I never in a million billion years thought I'd be homeschooling through high school, but here we are. It is great. He is doing fantastically. If you see a scrawny blonde kid running around doing running, he's volunteering here this weekend because he knows how important SENG is and how important it's been to our family that he's actually volunteering this weekend and giving back. He's very excited about that. His younger brother is 13. He's thriving in middle school and will stay there for the foreseeable future, but I know if everything goes pear-shaped, I can homeschool him as well. And if Illinois doesn't get a school funding bill passed, I may be homeschooling him after all. I've been blogging at Laughing at Chaos for over a decade. I started off as just your typical mom blog. Here I'm ranting and raving about having young kids. They were really young at the time. And it sort of morphed into giftedness as time went on. That led to my not-so-secret desire to be a writer. If This Is a Gift, Can I Send It Back? Was published in 2012 by Gifted Homeschoolers Forum Press. And eventually the book I am writing now on self-care and the needs of parents will be finished and out. We are, hoping for the holiday season, but hey, life gets in the way. I am a GHF ambassador, which with Gifted Homeschoolers Forum, I got into a lot of talking about homeschooling and gifted kids. And I'm also a volunteer with local gifted homeschooling and musical organizations. But above all, I am forever and always a flutist. I have been playing for 35 years. I did the math this week and almost passed out when I realized it's been that long. I've been teaching for over 20. I perform in the North Suburban Wind Ensemble north of the city here. I am local to this area. I have a master's degree in flute performance. I am basically a band geek through and through. And when I say band geek through and through, 24 hours ago, I was teaching a middle school band camp in Wisconsin. So I am always out and doing the music thing. I have spent thousands upon thousands of hours in practice rooms figuring out what I need to do and setting up routines so that I can learn best for me. There's so many ideas out there for musicians that eventually you just pick and choose and figure out what works best for you. And so I did that for so long with my flute playing that it finally occurred to me, self-care for this particular demographic of parents raising gifted and twice exceptional kids, those ideas could be applied as well. Because just like our kids are not in typical parenting books, our needs and our requirements for self-care as parents of these awesome kids, not out there anywhere. So I am notoriously bad at self-care, like bad upon bad. The irony that I'm giving a presentation on it, that I'm writing a book about it, that I am working on a online class with another life coach on this, it's not lost on me. So when I'm away from my flute, I really easily slide into crippling self-doubt like that. I'm a flutist, for crying out loud. That is my second favorite Far Side comic. My first favorite Far Side comic is, of course, Midvale School for the Gifted, which people think is horrible, but I'm like, really, have you met my kids? So I just remind myself as often as I can, fake it till you make it. Now you think, fake it till I make it is lying to yourself. But I don't see it that way. I really see it as convincing your lying mind, because our minds lie to us hourly, minutely. It's convincing yourself that you can do something you absolutely can do. When you act like you know what you're doing while you're working to do it, to improve what you're doing, eventually you believe you can do it because you can. So you just basically, you fake it till you make it. You talk yourself into it. All right, self-care. Self-care is not necessarily self-indulgence, and self-indulgence is not necessarily self-care. They are not one and the same. They can overlap, you can have both, but they're not exactly the same thing. So what is self-care? It is what you need, you yourself, for you to stay healthy, sane, and a few steps ahead of your kid. When I was in college and taking education classes, they kept saying, you just need to stay a couple of pages ahead of the kids. Okay. When you're doing self-care, you just need to stay a couple of steps ahead of your kid for yourself. For me, myself, I need alone time in my house with no one talking to me. Now, I homeschool and my husband works from home. I'm never alone in my house. I need regular exercise. Don't talk about that one. I need a gluten-free diet. I need time to write. I need time with my flute. I need time with friends in my computer, of which I have many, and I need time with friends in real life and wine. I mean, let's be real here, wine helps. I need to have uninterrupted conversations with my husband. It has gotten to the point that a code word in our house for when we are interrupted is military school. And they'll be like, what are you talking about? Military school. Oh, and they just disappear. And that's gotten really, really helpful. Helps that there's a military school 45 minutes from the house. I need considerably more hours of sleep than I care to admit to myself on any given day. 10 to 12 hours would be ideal. Unfortunately, life, I can't get 10 to 12 hours. But when I do, oh boy, it feels good. I don't get all of these all of the time, and I don't even get all of these most of the time, but I need to have some of them some of the time, or everything just goes downhill. I know myself, that's what I need. So I've learned this the hard way many, many, many times over. Over the last several years, I've collapsed repeatedly from exhaustion just because I didn't know what I needed, and I didn't take what I needed when I knew it. Exhaustion and stress will knock you over, and I'm sure you know it or you wouldn't be in here. My ability to cope just couldn't handle the amount of stress that I was adding to my life. So now I am dancing with a professional troupe of conditions and have to make very sure I am aware of my energy levels, and I have to take care of myself. I have to make sure self-care is a priority so that I can continue to do what my family needs and what I need to do for me. So what does self-care look like for you? It's going to be different for every single person in this room. I told you what I need for me. You may need something different. I am not a huge mani-pedi person, but if that's you, my God, go. Use that massage chair and just go nuts. So take some time this weekend to really chew on it, because if you're here, you're away from your responsibilities and you can have a little bit more brain power. Sit and think, brainstorm. You know, pie in the sky, blue sky thinking, what do you need for you? There are no wrong answers here at all. Okay, so thinking about thinking, metacognition. I spend a lot of time with my students, helping them think about what they need as they're playing. And I teach, I think my youngest student is like 8, my oldest student's 18. I teach primarily, you know, school-age kids. I have had younger, I have had older. However, every single one of them needs to learn how to think about what they're doing while they're doing it. So it's not something we do naturally. And if you think about it in a moment, musicians have this, they have it pretty down cold. And I'm going to read it straight from my notes here to make sure I get everything. We are visually interpreting musical code while we are balancing an instrument, while fingering, while breathing and blowing efficiently, while tonguing, while listening to what we are doing, while making sure we're in tune with a beautiful tone, while balancing and blending with other musicians, while interpreting the music appropriately, while keeping a steady tempo, while watching a conductor, while telling the little voices in our head to bugger off. We're doing that as you hear the beautiful music coming out, and if we're not 100% of the time, we get bad reviews. Okay, so we are on top of this thinking thing really, really fast and really well. And when I point this out to my students, they're all like, whoa. I'm like, yeah, dude, right? So we're really good at listening to what we're doing, analyzing it, and fixing it on the fly. we live in metacognition land. So the difference is, as parents, we don't have the benefit of going into private solitude in a practice room and practicing these skills while we're away from everybody else. We are in the fire walk that is gifted in Twice Exceptional Parenting. We are in the middle of it. We don't have the luxury of long periods of time to figure out tools and experimentation. We need tools that are going to help us out immediately. So I'm going to take a quick drink. You may have heard of HALT, and if you haven't, you're probably going to hear it several times this weekend. When our kids are proceeding to lose it, chances are it's one of these 4 things: hungry, angry, lonely, tired. When you feel yourself probably about to lose it, it could be one of these as well. So I've been really working on this with my boys, that they can start figuring out what's going on with them as they start to go off the rails. Most of the time they're either hungry, because that will mess with them really fast, or they're sensory overload, which I'm going to put under tired. I will tell you that kids eventually do pick this up. Oh yeah, I am blah, blah, blah. It's getting them to follow through with what they need to remedy that is taking a lot more practice. So parents need more. We're kind of advanced HALT. We need more than that. So I went back to try and figure out what's wrong with my practicing, or to figure out what's wrong with my playing while I'm practicing. And there's a lot of overlap between figuring out and analyzing what I'm doing and figuring out what's wrong with my life when nothing seems to be going well. So the first one is, how is my breathing? Am I breathing? Am I breathing fully, or am I breathing real shallowly in the tops of my chest? When I was first in childbirth classes, those many years ago, I really irritated the labor and delivery nurse doing the classes, because I flat out refused to practice that panting breathing because I knew myself. I knew myself, and I'd been studying breathing for like 10 plus years at that point. If I heard myself doing that quick panting breathing, I was gonna panic. Long, slow breathing, almost yogic breathing, I knew I would be fine. She saw me after I'd had our son, and she's like, so how'd the breathing go? I said, I did it low and slow. I was great. She was upset. I was right. I still went home with a baby. How is my energy? I'm talking mental, emotional, physical, spiritual as well. I am so much better able to cope with anything that comes my way when I have slept, when I have eaten, and when I have not overcommitted myself. I am really, 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 really good at overcommitting myself. In fact, several days ago, I just quit out of a couple of responsibilities, and I feel like 30 pounds lighter. It is the greatest. And I also have a lot more energy when I'm not listening to teens bickering about technology in the backseat. I've gotten really good at either putting in the headphones and not listening to them, or just telling them to stick it and wait till we get home so I don't have to listen to them. So overwhelm is the fastest way for me to fall to my knees and just knock me over. So how's energy? How are my emotions? How am I feeling? Are they really my emotions, or am I picking them up from other people or the world at large? I can walk into a room and tell instantly something had happened there. It freaks my husband out. I'll walk in and go, what happened? It's like, how did you know? I can feel it. Oh, I just yelled at the kids. Okay. So I struggle with this. I oftentimes have to pull myself away from the computer or other people, get away, just so that I have can flush out my filters. I've been known to tell my family, I love you, go away, get out. And this is the main reason why I need to be alone, is to clear myself of over emotion. How's my posture? Am I hunched over? In these shoes, I am officially 6 feet tall. The grand majority of other people are not this tall, so I have a tendency to hunch over so I can talk and hear. But am I hunched over? Are my shoulders rising to my ears? Being a writer and being a flute player, there is a tendency to hunch and shove your neck forward. That's really bad. It's painful, causes long-term problems. How much tension is in my neck, my jaw, my upper back? Where do you carry your tension? Where do you carry your stress? I know where I carry it, and I can check in there, and I can go, oh, okay, drop them, drop, oh, there we go. Now breathe in there and relax those muscles. Once I can do that, I feel immensely better. How is my tempo? Am I moving at the speed of crazy? Now I know I'm probably talking really fast. I blame it on being a Chicagoan. I tend to talk fast. I mean, sometimes you just have to buckle up and go for it. I mean, sometimes you just do. But, you know, small amounts of that. Music is more interesting when you use a variety of tempi. If you went all fast all the time, it gets real boring and real tiring. Life is the same way. If you have a variety of tempi, it's more interesting and you can go more long term. You go at the speed of crazy all the time, you're gonna collapse. How much do you really need to do? I said I quit out of a couple of things several days ago. I really did not need them. It was wonderful to back away. How much do your kids really need to do? This is a tough one, especially when you have multi-potentialite kids who want to try this and this and this and this and this and this, and suddenly you realize you guys are going 24/7 all week long and there's no time just to be. Do you really need to be at 100% speed 100% of the time? My husband and I have a 75% rule, and we vary from that from time to time and always have to pull it back. We strive really hard to not fill our lives past the 75% mark so that we have room for emergencies. We have room for unexpected opportunities, for breathing, for just sitting and staring out the window. We're 4 people of a gifted family. If we don't have some downtime, it gets real ugly real fast. And finally, is there something literally malfunctioning? A couple of years ago, I was dealing with some really severe pain in my left wrist. Like, I'm thinking, oh, great, my flute career is over. I can't type, I can't write, I can't play, it's over. I was in a wrist brace from knuckle to elbow. I thought it was carpal tunnel or tendonitis or something. Turns out, my flute had been badly repaired. And the key that I play with my ring finger was like 2 millimeters too high, plus it was leaking when I closed it. So something so tiny that was malfunctioning on my flute was causing debilitating pain. I was unconsciously compensating. I was lifting too high, I was pressing too hard. And in the process, I was damaging my wrist. So a very simple yet very expensive repair later, it was gone. My flute was fixed, the pain disappeared. So is there something that, if addressed, could address the stress, that could ease your stress? Is there something, are you unconsciously compensating for something? And again, this weekend's a great time to find a corner, sit and write, think through your life. It's awesome. When was your last physical? I'm looking here, it's all women. Women, moms, when was your last physical? Take care of yourselves, please. Could something be physically off that is making it unnecessarily difficult to cope? That's a hard one for us to admit, that there might be something physically wrong, but if we get it addressed, my God, how much better we would feel. So BEEP, TM, yeah, unfortunately, that's the best acronym I could come up with. And I threw the letters around everywhere, and that's all I could do, and I apologize, but hey, it's short. Okay, so breathing. Always comes back to breathing. We're a nation of very shallow breathers. We tend to breathe primarily here in our chest, very quickly. I work very hard to teach my students the proper way to breathe, because if you have a good breath, you have a good tone. And if you have a good tone, you sound good, you want to play more. Air is the only thing we need to live that is free. And if you think about it, it's true. Food, shelter, clothing, water, all money out of pocket. Air, for the time being apparently, is free. We're not paying for it. A deep, full, cleansing breath, free. Deep diaphragmatic breathing from our belly, like a baby breathes. Just feels good. When I was in college and I was practicing like, 8-10 hours a day, had the flute to face that long, I was under a great deal of stress, which I laugh at now, by the way, because there's no way that was stress. But I felt good because I was breathing deeply all day long, and it was awesome. It counteracted the stress I was under, not unlike mindful meditation breathing. And I'm starting to bring that into a lot of my flute lessons, where I have them do a warm-up that requires very long, slow breaths in and very long, slow exhales out, playing their flute. And I'm calling it a transition for them from the outside world, where everything is breaking loose, and the quiet of their practice room, where nobody's allowed to breathe, allowed to bother them. So this is a transition for them. So I have found through experimenting that if I am feeling anxious, out of control, if I go practice my flute, I feel better. Plus, Plus, my kids know not to bother me when I practice my flute because I get really irritated and yell. So breathing is the best way to do it. I'm going to show you how to breathe like a flutist in just a minute here. All right, so this little contraction is called a breath builder isometric exerciser. Musicians call it that ping pong thing. And they're like $15, which I find hysterical because you could probably make one for about $5. This is really, really good for kids to use to calm down. They're really good for you guys to use to calm down. And I'm going to show you how to use it here. It's visual, it's entertaining, it's challenging, but not overly so. So it's just this tube, standard ping pong ball in there. And on the top, you have a wide tube, and there's also a really narrow tube. And you put it on the attachment here, and then there are 3 holes on top. And the idea is, when you breathe in and out through this tube, so you don't want to breathe through your nose, the air escapes through these holes, and the ping pong ball gets stuck to the top. When you breathe in and you breathe out fully and deeply and quickly, the ping pong ball will stay at the top. So I'm going to show you how to do it. My hair's going to go flying and you're going to find it hysterical. So you take in a big breath, you blow it in, and then you got to keep it up there. So it's a really cool tool to help kids who maybe need a little focus on the breathing. And you can cover the holes in different amounts to increase and decrease the amount of pressure. So it's a handy dandy little tool just to keep in your pocket. And the more you do it, the longer you do it, the stronger your lungs become. I know there are other tools out there that you can buy that a lot of times asthmatics will have to measure their lung capacity and things. This one is fun because it doesn't have like asthma written all over it. This is literally a breath builder tool that musicians use, teachers use to work with their kids. Highly recommend these. Okay, so because we all have a difficulty with memory and I don't even remember breakfast, this is a way to help you remember the breathing. There's an app for everything. There's an app for this. This is the Breathe to Relax. It is a portable stress management tool that walks you through belly breathing. And what's really cool is it allows you to track your stress before and after breathing. This is actually put out by, I believe, the Department of Defense for soldiers returning from combat situations with PTSD. I find it just a fantastic way to track your stress levels when you are breathing. It's available on Apple iStore and Google Play. And this video from Breathe to Relax will actually walk you through diaphragmatic breathing, which is what I use to teach flute.
For many of us, breathing with our chests is a habit, and it may feel strange to breathe into the belly. But here's an easy way to start mastering belly breathing. I'll walk you through step by step. First, find a quiet place where you know you won't be disturbed.
Good luck.
Lie down on your back on a flat surface. Put one hand on your upper chest and one on your belly, just below your rib cage. Close your eyes and breathe in slowly through your nose. Expand your belly as you breathe in. You'll feel the hand on your belly rise noticeably, while the hand on your chest will barely move. Pause naturally. Then tighten up your stomach muscles and slowly exhale, allowing the air to gradually escape your lips. The hand on your stomach will fall quite a bit, while the hand on your chest will hardly move. Pause naturally, and then repeat until you are comfortable with this style of breathing. When you're first learning how to belly breathe, you might want to try practicing with a book on your belly while lying down. That way you can watch it rise and fall while you practice, letting you know that you're breathing deeply with your diaphragm instead of shallowly with your chest. Pay attention to the flow of your breath. Strive to make it smooth and gentle. Try to find a steady rhythm in your breathing. Think of your belly as a balloon that expands and collapses. As you become more comfortable with belly breathing, you can also try doing it sitting up. Even if it's hard at first, you'll find that it will get easier and more automatic over time. Be patient. Although breathing sounds like it should be easy to do, diaphragmatic breathing takes practice. It's important that you feel comfortable with this type of breathing before you move on to the guided breathing exercise.
the guided breathing exercise she was talking about is part of the Breathe to Relax app. It walks you through long, slow breaths, and you can change the timings and the lengths of those. It's a very, very helpful app. Okay, so mistakes. Musicians and mistakes. We make them, we make a lot of them, we hate them, we learn to manage hating them. We learn to take it slow at first so we can go fast, because we have to decide, do we want to learn it fast or do we want to learn it forever? Fast or forever. So we learn that if you keep practicing a mistake, it becomes ingrained and normal. So a lot of times we're told and taught, take it so slow that you don't have time to make a mistake, and then gradually speed it up. And if you never make a mistake, you never make a mistake. In a perfect world, that'd be great. In a not so perfect world, we learn to manage our mistakes. So, what fires together, wires together. This is a real thing. Neuroscience has shown that. I tell my students the more they do something, the smoother the path in their brain gets. So they darn well better be traveling the right way right off the bat. We learn that you cannot break a habit, but you can only create a new one to take its place. And oftentimes, creating a new one to replace a misfired one takes longer. So what wires together fires, or what fires together wires together. Stay in the moment and prepare for what comes next. This is hard to do, especially when you're a parent and you feel like, you know, again, it's a firewalk. I can tell almost immediately when my students pay attention to a mistake that they have made rather than staying in the moment and preparing for what's coming next. I can feel it, I can sense it, I can see it. It's like one hair on their head twitches or something. Their attention wavers and I can practically see them looking back at the wrong note even though they're still playing. This is similar to driving a car and running over a piece of street debris. And you keep looking back to see what was it you hit, and oh my God, the repair bill, and then you run into a tree. So you gotta stay in the moment. Keep going, get to an exit, and stop. Same with practicing an instrument, same with self-care. There's no need to beat yourself up for a mistake. Get to the closest stopping point, reevaluate, fix it. Banish negative self-talk. This is tough. This is really hard. I can hear, again, I can also practically hear my students when they're talking negatively to themselves. There's a great book out there that I read in college called The Inner Game of Music. It was based off the original book, The Inner Game of Tennis by Timothy Green. And it talks about the voice one and the voice two. The voice one is the one that you hear me saying to you. Voice two is the little one you want to shove a dirty sock in its mouth because it won't shut up. And it's the one that's telling you, oh, you're being terrible, oh, you know, this, that, and the other thing. I can hear my students when they're listening to that voice. It shows up when they're playing, it shows up in their body language. There's a lack of confidence that just suddenly appears. But I can also tell when the opposite happens, when they are not listening to that voice and they are in the moment and they are in a state of flow. And it is glorious. And for some of my students, this is the hugest thing for them, regardless of flute playing. For them to just get into a place where they're not listening to that voice and when they're into a state of flow, it is glorious and it makes teaching awesome. So banish negative self-talk. Guess how good at that I am. So this is my inner voice. This is Miserable Maud. She's a real piece of work. If she were a real life person, she would have lost some teeth by now. Also, Snapchat has the best filters because I couldn't look like that if I tried. I don't know how it did that thing with the mouth. But anyway, to silence Miserable Maud, I have made it a habit the last few years to share 3 positive things every day on Facebook. And I've been doing this 4 years or so. If you follow the Laughing at Chaos page, I usually try to remember to cross-post it there. Several years ago, I was in a pretty deep funk. We had moved cross country. I was still homeschooling. My writing was suffering. I was not teaching. I was miserable. It was ugly. And an old friend of mine said, you'll get your mojo back when you perk up, essentially. She said it much nicer than that. So basically, she challenged me to find one good thing about the day and post it every night on Facebook. And if I did that for the entire month of June, she would come take photos of my family. She's a professional photographer. Well, I needed photos of my family, and I'm a sucker for free things, so I did. Except I made it 3 good things. And yeah. So I've been managing to keep it up for over 4 years now. And I got the free photos, by the way. They're beautiful. I love them. And one of my favorite ones is we had the four of us like on a bridge, and it was like one of those nice, calm family photos. And the boys are looking at each other, and my husband's looking down at the boys, and I'm going, and bunny earring one of the kids. And it's seriously one of my favorite photos because it's just so sweet and calm and ridiculous. So I've kept this up for roughly 4 years. I took some time off last fall because, try as I might, I couldn't find anything positive about anything. So I started up again, I think in February. Some days the best I can do is, I did not go run naked screaming down the street. I mean, I'm not kidding, I have posted that. There are days that is all I can accomplish. There are other days where I'm like, I've got my 3 and I have like bonus 4 more because it was just, I could find things. It was great, it was a great day. It has really helped me gain perspective, reframe the day, which is fantastic right before I go to bed. What I've also really loved is seeing other people pick it up, other friends pick it up, and they've started doing 3 things a day. And then I see them on their pages and their friends are saying, this is fantastic, I love seeing your 3 things, I'm gonna start it. And so it's creeping out there as these best things of the day. And it is glorious to see that people are, caring for themselves and finding something, anything, at night for making the day better. Other thing I highly recommend is journaling. I like day 1 because I'm a computer and Mac person. If you are not, pen and paper. If you're gonna do it, get yourself a nice, good pen that feels good in your hand and the sexiest journal you can find. And make it worth your time, make it worth your while. These are your thoughts. Do it when you want. I tend to do it in the morning because I have a little bit more time then, because I find if I don't do it in the morning, it doesn't get done. I also have found that I'm a lot more honest in the morning. In the evening, I'm like, oh, I did this today and I did this today. In the morning, I'm just like, bleh. All thoughts just come out of my head. And because I don't often know what I think until I write it, it's awesome to see that, and then I can go, that's something to think about today. Okay, so opposite day. Your kids ever play opposite day? Yes means no, no means yes. Go to bed means run around naked after your bath. Yeah, I've discovered through teaching that often the most counterintuitive solution is the correct one. You want to play faster? Your fingers instantly, you just want to start slapping the keys because you got to go fast. No, gentlest touch possible. As close to the keys as you can go, and your fingers will take off. You want to play slower? You want to play softer? I was working on this with a bunch of middle schoolers yesterday. That was fun. You want to just slow your air down. No, you got to blow really fast to play softly, or your pitch goes wild and you sound like you don't sound good. So you get the idea. Oftentimes the solution to your problem is the opposite of your instinct. So for example, less is more. Want to get more done in the day? Cut your list in half and you won't be overwhelmed by it. You'll get more done. Ask me how much I do this. No. I routinely start the day with like 25, 30 things. I've gotten to the point where I have to hide 2/3 of the list so I can get the important stuff done. I often tell my students to only practice 2 to 4 measures at a time. So that's like a small chunk. It's like half of Twinkle Twinkle for those of you who aren't familiar with like musical terms. That's all that exists at any moment in time. It's just that chunk. If you have a hard time just focusing on that chunk, cover up the rest with sticky notes and don't look at it. It's the same thing we tell our students when they're faced with a whole page of math problems. Cover up the rest of the page with another piece of paper. Just look at the ones that you're looking at. Same thing works for us. Hide what you don't have to do right now. Any more than that, and you get overwhelmed. Less is more. Go slow to go fast. I talked about this one earlier. If you try and jump in and improve a dozen things at once, you're going to burn out quickly, and nothing is going to get done, and you're going to feel like a horrible failure. My students, well, that's true, I do. My students are learning to practice really slowly with the metronome. I mean, like so slowly that they have time to write grocery lists between beats. And then they gradually speed up. They get up to speed considerably faster that way rather than just belly flopping into the notes and then trying to figure it out. The learning also stays with them longer when they take it slowly. So again, you have to think, am I going to learn it fast or am I going to learn it forever? They're learning it I want them to learn it forever. So you gotta go slow to go fast. Same with self-care. When you're trying to figure out what works for you, find one thing, practice it slowly. Do you want it to stay forever, or do you want to be not having to go forever, or you have to be doing it again? Work smarter, not harder. I love it when I can start teaching my students cheat fingerings, and I hate calling them cheat fingerings because they're legal fingerings, but shortcuts to play faster and cleaner and smarter. I love sharing the story of the fly banging against the window, and it's that fly, bless its heart, it's trying to get outside. 2 inches away, the window is wide open, but it keeps trying to go through that glass. It's trying hard. Be smarter. So I am inherently lazy. I am lazy. I love it. I'm trying to find the most efficient way to do what I need to do. Not the shortest way, not the cheating way, but efficient. So efficient fingerings. Work smarter, not harder. What works for you? All right, so the domino effect. Sometimes one little tiny thing will cascade into a whole lot of improvement. So my example is I have really, really, really double jointed pinkies. And when you're playing flute, if you have double jointed pinkies, you're gonna end up like with hand pain, and that's bad. So at one point in college, I took several months and I got some paper tape and I taped my pinkies into curves. And I practiced like that for months. Well, what I found was, because I'm training them to stay that way, suddenly my posture changed because my hand position changed. Improvement, okay? Now my technique cleaned up and I could play way faster. That was awesome. And because they were suddenly working properly, and I mean, we're talking little bitty joints here. And the improvement in posture led to more efficient breathing because I'm standing better and I'm more comfortable, which led to a better sound, which led to better interpretation, which led to more success, which led to me improving it a whole lot, or enjoying it a whole lot more. One little thing had a domino effect that skyrocketed me into improvement. This fed into the musician's improvement vortex. If you practice, you get better. If you get better, you play with better players. If you play with better players, you play better music. If you play better music, you have more fun. If you have fun, you want to practice more. If you practice more, you get better and over and over and over. All because I taped my double jointed pinkies. Same vortex works for us. Is there one little thing, one, you could change in your life? Just one. Doesn't matter. It's for you. You don't have to share it. I mean, something small that you could easily tape into curves for a few months. Something manageable that would benefit you, and then domino effect into greater improvement. Now, it's going to be vastly different for everyone because we all have incredibly different lives and situations and kids. I mean, if you met one 2E kid, you've met one 2E kid. You're taping your pinkies, not your spouses, not your kids, not the teachers, not the system. You. This is for you. You get to be selfish. So, for me, my one thing is skipping the late news at night. Not terribly easy to do, but I skip it and I head to bed with a totally mindless magazine. And there's actually a line item in our budget for mindless magazines because I need something to read at night or I don't fall asleep. I don't have the bandwidth for nonfiction at bed, and if I'm reading fiction, I'm up until 3 a.m. because just one more chapter, just one more chapter. So by skipping the news, I'm avoiding bad news right before bed, which is, probably a great idea. And the news lately is just, yeah. So I get a better night's sleep. I wake up the next day, I'm more rested. I have better self-control. I have fewer headaches, which is awesome. It leads to better parenting and better self-care and an improved life. I don't do this every night. I can't. I mean, sometimes I just don't have a magazine. Sometimes I'm not getting off the couch and I get sucked into the evening news. And yeah, Chicago news tends to go with the thing of if it bleeds, it leads. 5 minutes into the news, you've heard of 3 house fires, at least a dozen shootings, and who all knows what else. So when that happens, I really do pay the piper the next day. So I work really hard to somehow get away from everything. I'll go upstairs and I'll play Words with Friends in bed just to get away. So think about it again this weekend. It's a great time just to brainstorm. What one little thing could you change as a new habit that would improve your self-care? Practice. Like anything we want to improve, we have to practice. Practicing is hard. It is hard, but we need to do it anywhere we want to get better. Practice does not make perfect, because perfect doesn't exist, so why torture ourselves? My son loves physics and quantum physics, and he always reminds me, Mom, the universe exists because it isn't perfect. I'm like, thank you, thanks. So, practice does not make perfect, practice makes better. I hate practice makes perfect. I hate it when I hear people tell that to students. I'm like, no, it doesn't exist. They don't need another complex. Practice makes better. So by far the hardest part of practicing is just opening the case. Once my case is open, I'm golden. I practice. It's sitting down, getting the food out of the bag, getting the case open, putting it together. Oh, hey, I'm ready. Let's do it. So once you do that, it gets easier. For me, setting exercise clothes out the night before greatly increases the chance that I will go and exercise. Doesn't mean I'm gonna, just greatly increases the chance of the possibility of me going to the YMCA. So you need to cultivate the habit of self-care. You do that by making it easier on yourself so you follow through with what you say you want to do. I make sure I have mindless magazines. I make sure I set up my workout clothes. Otherwise, I am the living, breathing example of Newton's first law. An object at rest tends to stay at rest, and I'm really, really good at that law. So open your case, have things ready, make it easy on yourself. So this in one, I have had conversations about this phrase with a life coach and with another flute teacher. Practice isn't fun, but it should be satisfying. And both of them took offense, kind of, with the isn't fun. Well, you know, I look at it as practice isn't fun, but it better be satisfying. Practice is hard work. It isn't always fun. You're working, you're concentrating, you're trying to improve things. But it better be satisfying because the payoff is awesome. When you see results that you don't expect, or you see results sooner than you expect because you put in the detail work, it's fantastic. You should feel like you accomplished something. But oftentimes practice is not fun. You should feel like your time has not been wasted, that you are making progress, however minuscule the progress may be. It doesn't have to be fun, but it better be satisfying. So how to practice? I teach my students how to practice all the time. So how to practice? You have to do the work. No one else. It's you. No amount of wishing, dreaming, hoping, praying is going to do it for you. No one is going to come to you and say, darling, my dear, come take care of yourself so that you can take care of others. It's not going to happen. So you need to carve out the time, and you need to follow through, and you need to do the work, and so that you get the self-care that you deserve, you get to be selfish. I give you permission. Please go be selfish. Isolate the problem. This is your one little thing. Figure out what one little thing you can do. Isolate everything else with sticky notes. Nothing else exists. What's your one little thing? Fix it. Make it happen. You're worth it. Small changes over a long period of time lead to huge improvement. So stick with that one small little thing until it is a new habit. How small? As small as necessary. As small as you are able to focus on until you have it down cold. I mean, I'm talking pinkies. How small are these joints? One little thing fixed a whole lot of problems. Small changes, big improvement. It often helps to check in with someone about your goals every week or so. Students take lessons with me every week because that's enough time between lessons that I can see their small incremental changes. They can't see them, but I can. I can also tell 30 seconds into a lesson if they have practiced that week. Drives them nuts. That's why I don't require practice charts. I can tell, sorry honey. In life, we call these accountability partners. You can have a life coach. You can have just a friend. But make sure it's someone you trust 100%. I mean, you have to have honest trust in them, that they will be kind and honest with you. Be patient and forgive yourself when you falter, because you are going to falter. It is really hard learning a new skill, especially one that involves taking care of yourself, and really hard when you're used to putting your needs last. So if you're not used to this, you've got to be forgiving and patient with yourself. Like hitting that piece of road debris, just briefly acknowledge that you faltered and move on. No negative self-talk, full speed ahead, miserable Maud does not exist. Let her go. Perfectionism. Yeah, it exists. We all have it to some degree. Please do not let it interfere with your progress. Baby steps are important here. I work very hard to keep perfectionism between me and my flute. I try and box off that relationship. Sometimes good enough has to be enough. And you really have no idea how hard it is for me to say that and live that. It is hard because I want everything to be perfect. No, sometimes it just has to be enough. Paralysis by analysis. I don't know if this is a musical thing. I say this to people and they're like, I've never heard that before. I'm like, I've been living this for years. It's having so many choices that you can't figure out what to do next. I get stuck there a lot. Daily, hourly, you know. I can sit and try and figure out what to do and I like freeze. Pick something, anything, and just do it. It doesn't matter if it's the right next step, it's a step. And when in doubt, breathing. Just start with breathing, because oftentimes just the breathing will clear you out. Boundaries. My kids have learned that my alone time is for their safety. Amen. So we have to model behavior to our kids. I mean, that's what we do as parents, is modeling behavior. And it's hard and frustrating, but that is frankly one of our jobs. And modeling appropriate boundaries is near the top of that list. And I do tell them that my alone time is for their safety, and they have learned not to bother me when I'm practicing my flute, probably because I freak them out when I'm screaming at the notes. Mom, that word isn't in the music. It is when I write it in there. So I know that it's really hard to do when the kids are younger. I get it, trust me. I had kids where I just had to have the mom radar on all the time, and I'm trying to turn it off even now. Duct tape isn't exactly legal. So it's a process of training the family to leave you alone so that you can have some time to decompress. I really wish I had started enforcing self-care when the boys were younger, because then I wouldn't have to slap this up when I'm trying to concentrate. I really do have this sign on my office, and I put it up when I'm trying to concentrate. And then I put in earplugs, and then I put on big over-the-ear headphones, and I crank music loud. So it doesn't damage my ears, but then I don't hear anything. And they have that, and I might as well be in the next state. But I made this because I was really tired of being disturbed. My office is an open loft with a bookcase and a room divider. They can see me, they can hear me, they can smell me, whatever. They know I'm there, is my point. I need boundaries. They almost remember to obey it too. So I know how hard it can be to care for yourself. I really do. It seems like yesterday when I went to my husband and said, surely this is the hardest it will be. They were 4 and 1. So yeah, right. It was another 8 years before I felt like I wasn't drowning on a daily basis. Part of it was the boys maturing, and part of it was just me developing better skills for coping and for parenting and for caring for myself. But I do remember how difficult and overwhelming and frightening and isolating it was, and I really wish I had taken better care of myself when they were younger, so I'd be in better shape now. So it really and truly does get better. I just wish I had done it, earlier so I could be happier and saner and healthier now. So these are the 6 things that are good to take back with you. Silence your inner critic. Work smarter, not harder. Fake it till you make it. Change that one little thing. Set and keep boundaries. And then the BEAT, that horrible acronym that I couldn't come up with anything else, but that works. So a couple of final thoughts. We lived in Colorado for a very long time and moved back here towards family 6 years ago. So we had 10 years of parenting without any backup family nearby. And I know it's really hard. Reliable sitters for quirky, active kids, complex kids, are hard to find. I highly recommend, if you're anywhere near a college, special education majors. Those kids can handle it. One of my best babysitters was a teacher's aide starting in middle school. She was a teacher's aide to the special education department. Did that all the way through high school, went through college, and is a special ed teacher now. She could handle anything my boys would throw at her. She was fine. I loved her. She was awesome. So there was nothing she couldn't handle. A mother's helper can, corral the kids for an hour while you go and hide your head and scream into a pillow, whatever you need to do. An hour. That's like 2 episodes of something or other. And guys make great sitters. One of the best babysitters we had shortly before we moved, my kids were a little older, was a guy. And he came and played like video games with the boys, talked to them about programming and tech, and now my oldest son and he are friends on Facebook, and they talk tech and programming and geek stuff, which was awesome. So now at 16 and 13, I'm pushing my boys to get their CPR training updated and do some Red Cross training. They can make bank as a boy babysitter. Go get a job. It's great. They'll hire you. So in wrapping up, you can always find me at my online home, Laughing at Chaos, where I do try to remember to write. Life gets in the way. And many of the other places where I'm at, I do try to be on the Twitter chats as often as I can. I do post on Facebook at least once a day when I post my 3 good things. And I'll be camping out at the GHF booth here at SENG. Yes, because GHF has been very kind in publishing my book and letting me go speak. I think that's it. We have time for questions. Anybody have any questions? Anybody just want to scream into the void and have people go, it's okay? My goodness, I covered everything. I don't want to call that a win. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. Hopefully you guys have a great weekend here at SENG, and if you haven't been here before, you'll really enjoy it. It's been the best possible thing for us to come and do. My husband went to one once and went, oh, I understand now. Yeah. He understood himself. He understood the kids. He understands so much. And it was a glorious weekend when he went. It was our romantic getaway many years ago. So thank you for coming. If you have any questions, you can grab me up here. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thanks.